1950s, there was led man leading the Communist Party called Alexander Dubček, who was actually very progressive, and he was thinking, okay, we can be communists, why not? But why do we have to be so strict with our people? So he started something that is called socialism with a human face. And that means that he started freedom of speech, freedom of traveling, and these basic necessities that are not until then very common or common at all. And this was not very nice for the people from Moscow back then. The president of the Soviet Union, Mr. Brezhnev, was very old and very strict communist, so he didn't like this. And so Moscow office sent a letter to Alexander Dubček here in Czechoslovakia, and the letter was saying, you should reconsider these things you are doing in Czechoslovakia. These are not probably the best for our idea and our together future, common future. And Alexander Dubček sent a letter back, and the letter said, thank you for your concern, but no thank you. I think this is the right thing to do for my people. And the answer to the second letter was not the letter anymore, but it was a full-on occupation of the Soviet soldiers here in Czechoslovakia in 1968. Tanks came here, soldiers came here, and basically something that was called normalization started. But normalization, what is normal for us now was not normal for them back then. So basically 1970s were again 1940s here in Czechoslovakia because of this normalization, because of this occupation of the Soviet army here in Czechoslovakia. But in 1980s, the Communist Party is starting to be weaker and weaker, and also the economy of the country was not very good. Back then, nowadays it's a running joke here in Slovakia and Czech Republic. Every New Year, on the New Year's Eve, there was a president giving speech to our people in TV, and all of these speeches were the same. Oh, we are progressing. Our country is amazing. We have everything we need to have. We are working very good. Still the same every year. But in 1980s, people actually could feel like this is not true anymore, and they didn't really give this much credit. And if some time was a good time for the revolution, it was 1980s. It also helped that Mr. Brezhnev died in the Soviet Union, and they didn't really know what to do then because he was living for many years. Like here, even actually when he died, when someone came to you like, here Brezhnev died, and the other people were like, what? No, I don't believe you. Like, why are you joking? Because he was really living for many years, or I don't know, many years. But so in the Soviet Union, actually, then there were like two other presidents, but they died every year, basically, because they didn't know what to do in Soviet Union, in Moscow. So they just quickly put someone as a president, but they were so old that they died every year, basically. So there's two other presidents that died every year. And then there was a President Mikhail Gorbachev, and thanks to him, our revolution here was possible, basically. He started something that was called perestroika, and this was basically something allowing every country, which was a part of the Soviet Union, and the satellite states as us, to create their own government and create their own policy in their states. So, for example, the part of it was also something called glasnost, which was the freedom of the speech. So freedom of the speech started slowly. Freedom for your own businesses started slowly, which was a big thing back then as well. So it kind of started to look more democratic step by step. And this is why our people were thinking now or never. So in a first big a protest that we remember and was important during these times was here in Bratislava in 1988. This was protest on the Hviezdoslav Square. If you've seen the Opera House, the Slovak National Theatre, so it was there. This was just the protest. Imagine many people standing there, like 500 people, with candles, and they were just slowly praying, quietly praying. That was it. They were just staying there and quietly praying. But the police came, the fire trucks came, and they were like police cars were crashing to the people standing there. The fire trucks were throwing water, spraying water on the people. So it was not very. Many people were hurt that day. The next year, in 1989, 16th of November, our students started to protesting here in Bratislava. There were 300 students in front of the presidential palace, and this was very quiet. Actually, police didn't hurt the students. It was very good, very quiet, and this is why it's not very remembered. But the next day, 17th of November 1989, something very similar happened in Prague. Again, students started protesting, but there was no 300 of them. There were 1,500 of them. So really big number if you really think of the protesting was illegal back then. So 1,500 students found the bravery and came to the Prague to protest against our government and the communist era. They were hurt very badly. Many of them were beaten up by police. And this is why we remember this much better than the one in Bratislava. And also something happened what started the revolution immediately and couldn't take the step back. Some people saw a body lying on the ground, and the news started to spread that police killed a student. Few hours later, it became clear that it was just a hoax, it was not the truth, but it didn't matter anymore, because just this one small news was enough to start the whole protest and the revolution, which we nowadays call as Velvet Revolution here in former Czechoslovakia. First, theaters stopped working. They were protesting. Then also all of the college students and high school students, they would come to the school, but they wouldn't work, they wouldn't learn, they would just start to spread the news. Back then there were no social medias or cell phones, so they needed to spread this news from Prague somehow. So they started to write letters of what happened during 17th November in Prague, and they started to travel through other towns and spread these messages and spread everything. And this revolution started like this. And that's why I can be here, and that's why I can speak about it freely. Then there were some more protests, because more and more people after this news started to protesting as well. Until the 17th of November they were too afraid, but after this news, like someone was killed by police, they just didn't fear anymore, and they started. So there were many other protests also after 17th of November. People were ringing their keys. That was very big symbol back then to open doors of democracy in Czechoslovakia. So nowadays, if you will see someone with keys or ringing keys, it's a really big emotional symbol here in Czechoslovakia, in Czech Republic and Slovak Republic. Yeah, sometimes, sorry, I get really emotional talking about this. Because I have to say I'm very grateful for my parents who were there, for my grandparents who were there, ringing their keys and protesting, because I can't really imagine living in the era they were living. I'm not saying it was all bad, but I'm really grateful that I can live now in a free country where I can say anything I want, I can do anything I want, I can travel through the world and nobody's stopping me, nobody is shooting me when I'm going outside of Bratislava. So yeah, very grateful, and I think that this is the nicest place where to talk about it. But okay, I can't stop crying. So thank you very much for joining the tour. This is actually the end of the tour.